Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Morgan's Pop Talks, breaking down the latest in reality TV and pop culture. Per usual, we have a ton of things to discuss today. Jason and Kat and Kaitlyn, Justin Timberlake, Summer House Reunion Part 2, Love Island USA. It's all hitting across the board. But, we got to start at the top of the show. Rant. Let me just tell you, your girl's getting ready for Wedding 2.0 next week. It's next week. As of today, I wrote a check for my life savings for my reception venue. And I just kept telling myself, it's all going to be worth it. Yes, there were question marks at the end of that sentiment. But I'm just going to trust and believe that it is going to be worth it. Because now I'm poor. It's a wild ride, preparing for Wedding 2.0. I'm getting ready to host a number of people from South Africa, from Canada, from Seattle, from Miami, from England, all over God's creation. Can't wait. And let me tell you, I am using this wedding as an excuse to swerve everyone and everything. I am sending so many let's circle back emails. And I haven't really had a reason to use the phrase since I left my 9 to 5 that was actually like a 5:30 a.m. till 11. You get what I'm saying? I haven't had to use the phrase let's circle back in a long time, and I'm really enjoying it. And I am using it. I am using it, every last drop of it. People are like, you want to schedule a meeting? I'm like, let's circle back. Let's circle back in July. So we're just living life over here, dodging all responsibilities and business discussions. This is a business discussion, right? Yeah, sure. We can just go ahead and say that. Let's get into it. Pop 3, biggest headlines of the week. We got to start with Jason and Kat, their hard launch, and Kaitlyn Bristow's reaction to it, because this was quite the ordeal that happened at the end of last week. And I don't know why I have just been feeling like I've been, I don't want to say shying away from Kaitlyn Bristow content, but I've been taking a step back from Kaitlyn Bristow content. I also just feel like I'm also mentally taking a step back from Lala Kent content and Carl and Lindsay content, just the stuff that really puts me in a weird headspace. I'm kind of removing myself from it a little bit, but we could not ignore this one. It was pretty in your face. So anyways, people have been knowing that Kat and Jason have officially been an item, but they did a hard launch on Instagram last week. A picture of themselves hugging, the caption saying heart is full. And it's ever since they posted that one picture, they were off to the races. They were at the Preakness, going for gold with all these sappy stories and, TikTok videos about him looking like her brother and all these things. I'm not mad about it. I think Jason and Kat are a cute couple. I like them together. People have been saying that Jason has a type. He does. It's fine. It's fine to have a type. Kat and Kaitlyn, I think, are pretty similar on a couple different fronts, but obviously we don't know these people. They're not our friends. We don't know them like that, but from the outside looking in, it does seem like Jason has a little bit of a type. So that transpired into some mess. It first started in a Facebook group for Off the Vine, where somebody was like, in light of the news that came out today, let's all write something that we love about our girl, KB. So then people were like, are we throwing a pity party for Kaitlyn here because Jason's in a new relationship, or what's going on? It seems like Kaitlyn has moved on with Zach. Why would we need to, shower her with compliments today if she's moved on? So Kaitlyn responded to it and she said, y'all are making some wild assumptions in here. Thank you for the kind sentiment. It meant a lot to me. She then said that she's not hurt regarding Jason's new romance. It's more, she said, it's more of held on anger and resentment that I'm working on. Okay. I understand what she's saying here, but it's also a little bit of semantics, right? Because when you say that you have anger and resentment, those feelings stem from a place of hurt. If you're not hurt, if you don't care about the situation, then you don't have those emotions. So, it is what it is. I get what she's saying. She's not like heartbroken and crying that they're not together, but it's more anger and resentment. So then Jason posts a really long thing about the first time they kissed and how Kat got off the airplane, and it was very much so giving Ross and Rachel. And immediately after that, or very quickly after that, Kaitlyn took to her Instagram stories. You already know what color was the background. Black. What color was the text? White. You already know. It's going down on the Instagram stories when that happens. And this is what she wrote. People make me bleeping sick. Then in another Instagram story, she said, if you only knew, in all capital letters. Then she says, what people will do for attention is making me want to exit the internet forever. Okay. And people are coming for her too in this moment because they're like, Kaitlyn, you can't really make that argument when you post a lot of things online that some people interpret as, doing things for attention. I think there's a fine line of living your life publicly on the internet and being real and true and authentic and sharing, every little aspect of your life and doing things for attention. Some people will look at the crying selfies and say, oh, she's doing that for attention. Other people will say she's an open book. She's sharing her life. She's not, sugarcoating things that she's going through, and people really like her for that reason. I think in general, I saw some of the comments that she was liking under a couple posts. And from what I was gathering, like Inspector Gadget, it seemed as though she was under the impression that Jason's next relationship would be more private. And this is like the opposite, right? It's like they pretty much have a megaphone. They're on the top of Mount Rushmore and they're like, we're in love. And people think we look like siblings. It's like a lot. And so I think if Kaitlyn had the thought that his next relationship was going to be a bit more private, then she might feel some type of way about that. Is she allowed to have an opinion on it, I guess, is the question. I don't know. I feel like it's easy for people to be like, no, she shouldn't have an opinion on it. They're broken up. She's in another relationship. But if I were her, I'd probably have an opinion on it. I don't know if I'd make that opinion public because you're kind of contradicting yourself. If you're writing an Instagram story saying the things people do for attention, that's a little bit ironic, So I don't know. I don't know what to make of it all. Like I said, I do think Kat and Jason are a cute couple. I think that public relationships for both Kaitlyn and Jason only help them. They're public people, It's like, how are we going to get people to buy the books? How are you going to get people to listen to the podcast? How are you going to, and that goes for Jason and Kaitlyn. So that's why I think I was so surprised when we heard about her relationship with Zach Clark. Because from what we see, it is more of a private relationship, and Kaitlyn is a very public person. I don't know how long that will last for her, right? And even like when Zach and Tayshia broke up, from what we heard, it was a lot of the fact that Zach didn't really like being in the limelight. So I don't know if maybe Kaitlyn is trying to, test this out and see how it goes, keeping this relationship private, seeing as all of her other past relationships have been pretty public. But like part of me also thinks if I were in Kaitlyn's shoes and I'm petty, I'm not afraid to admit it. And like my ex is moving on in a very public relationship. I would want to do it too. I wouldn't be like, yeah, but this is my boyfriend. But if Zach doesn't like that, then maybe, I don't know. We're spiraling here, reckless speculation. But I don't know. I just think the hate is a little bit too much on the Kaitlyn front. Like people are really mean to her. Anyways, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. Let's move on to headline number 2. Justin Timberlake was arrested for allegedly driving while intoxicated in the Hamptons, according to what a source told ABC News. So the arrest happened in Sag Harbor, New York, and Tuesday his mugshot was released to the public along with more details. According to reports, Justin Timberlake drove through a stop sign and swerved into the oncoming lane of traffic while driving a 2025 BMW XM, and police said he was operating the vehicle in an intoxicated position. Police determined that JT was driving drunk, his bloodshot, glassy eyes, and a strong odor of an alcoholic beverage emanating from his breath, according to the criminal complaint. According to the document, during the traffic stop, he said, "I had one martini and I followed my friends home." He was held overnight. Then he was released Tuesday morning and was ordered to appear virtually in Sag Harbor Village Court on July 26th. He's right in the middle of a tour. He has 2 concerts in Chicago this weekend and 2 more in New York next week. And right before I popped on here, his attorney spoke. His name is Edward Burke Jr. It says, Edward Burke Jr. released a statement to Page 6 on Wednesday saying, Mr. Burke looks forward to vigorously defending Mr. Timberlake against these allegations. He will have a lot to say at the appropriate time. He is currently awaiting full discovery from the DA's office. He did a field sobriety test. Apparently it didn't go over well. He refused a chemical test from what I read. So I think that means he's into a breathalyzer. It's so wild to me. And I feel like everybody is kind of having the same takes here, but it is just so wild to me that people are still getting DWIs in 2024. And it's like, even rich people, it's like you don't want to make that argument because it's like, whatever, they're people too, but like, my land sakes, you have the world at your fingertips. You could snap and a UFO would probably come down to pick you up. And you still decide to drive drunk. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. It makes no sense to anybody whatsoever. I feel like in the past, JT has been able to evade bad press. You know, the thing with his co-star however many years ago, Britney's book. I will say evade bad press until now, okay? Because I feel like whenever the stuff came out in Britney's book, that's when things kind of started, really going downhill. We heard that his ticket sales weren't selling, although I don't really believe that. I mean, I tried before the book came out, okay, to get tickets, and I couldn't. They were sold like that. Of course, you can buy them on the secondary for like, the price of your firstborn child. But who wants to do that? But I just think like when you look at it in the broad view of things, there's a lot going on with JT. It's just been very suppressed, I feel like. You think back all the way to that thing with the co-star, the pictures of them holding hands, and he kind of went back MIA. And then the book came out and, he didn't really address anything too much. And then he was kind of upset because it was overshadowing the new music and all of these things. And it's just like, for Justin Timberlake to want this to be his comeback year, it has really fallen flat. It really has. And from the sounds of it, it sounds like he's going to be fighting back, whether or not he was drunk. So, I mean, truly, what a time to be alive. We'll get into more of that as it plays out, obviously, but it sounds to me like he thinks that he was wrongfully arrested. Let's move on to headline number 3. Is Christine Quinn returning to Selling Sunset? Dun, dun, dun. The earth is shaking. Check your pulse. You heard it right. Is Christine Quinn returning to Selling Sunset? Jason was asked about Christine by TMZ recently about her coming back. And I just have to wonder why. Like, what prompted this? It's like you see Jason Oppenheim on the streets of Los Angeles or wherever they were. Like, is your first question automatically, is Christine coming back? Unless there's like rumors and circulation. I don't know. This is what he said. I have nothing against her coming back. I think everyone deserves a second chance. I think I would be on board, but that would be a group decision. He said a lot of people are involved in making that type of decision, including Netflix and the cast members. He would be for it if everyone else was. So just to jog your memory, the reason why Christine left Selling Sunset, well, I mean, I guess it depends who you ask. She didn't show up to the reunion. She said she had COVID, but then she was seen with Melissa Gorga, like filming a TV commercial or something. But also, she was going on this business venture with her now estranged husband, right? They were starting their own brokerage, something with cryptocurrency. Look, you can explain cryptocurrency to me until you're blue in the face and I still won't get it. Even if I get it, I still don't get it. So there's really no point in trying. But anyways, she left the Oppenheim Group to do that. Well, now that we see how things are playing out, is she going to continue to do that? I feel like she won't. I mean, she might do it on her own. But if not, it does make for a compelling argument for her to come back to the show at this particular time in her life. Mary Fitzgerald was asked about it at the Critics' Choice Awards by E! News. She said, I wish her the very best. I feel really, really bad for what she's gone through, and I want her to live her best life. And then she said, I don't think that's going to happen about her returning. She said, we ran into each other and got a picture, so it kind of got blown up into that she's now coming back. I guess they ran into each other at a party, they took a picture, and now everybody thinks that she's coming back to the show. According to Mary, season 8 of Selling Sunset is emotional, explosive, and surprising. So it's like, do they need Christine Quinn to come back? The ultimate villain. I'm always here for a comeback. I like a good palate cleanser, because sometimes the villains can get a little bit too much, but I love a good comeback. The suspense. I love it. So we'll see. This week, getting into the deep dive, Summer House Reunion Part 2. Let me just start by saying that I, after today, am so glad that, I say this and I'm just like the biggest hypocrite ever, because I was just about to say I'm so glad that I get a little break from Summer House, but I was ranting and raving about season 8 all the live long day. I was like captain of the Summer House mascot crew. Like I was there with my Vuvuzela. You guys remember Vuvuzelas? Those used to be the thing when I was in high school. Anyways, I loved it. I loved it so much. I think I'm just over analyzing Carl and Lindsay, because it's like 32 minutes of part 2 of this reunion. Yes, 32 minutes was dedicated to Carl and Lindsay. And I just feel like there was so much other stuff that happened. I feel like, people aren't really happy with the way that this reunion panned out when it comes to what we saw from all the cast members. I'll get into that, but let's just go ahead and start at the beginning. We start with West and Sierra. And would she give him another chance? She kind of says yes, that she would give West another chance after all of that. And she's been catching some heat on it. And my thing is, you can't turn feelings on and off. West is very charismatic. He's very charming. He's not like the stereotypical hot guy in the Hamptons. He's kind of goofy. And like, we've all got by the goofy guy at some point in our life. And we look back on that time period in our life and we're like, are you kidding me? Like, what was going through my mind at that time? Was I like on some type of brain altering substance for a year of my life? Why did I like this guy? He was such a loser. We've all been there. Not saying that Wes was a loser. He's not. But you get what I'm saying. We all have that one relationship where we look back and we're like, how did I not like just break myself free of that sooner? But I just think that it leaves the door wide open for season 9, because Sierra says, I still have feelings for him. Wes says, I still have feelings, even though I don't necessarily believe him because of this interview that he did, I think in the New York Times, I don't know, something, where he said, like, I think the relationship ran its course. That to me doesn't really sound like I still have feelings for her, which makes me believe Paige when she says he's scared of the public not liking him. He doesn't care about the damage that it caused you. But it does leave the door open for season 9. Where is it going to go with Sierra and West? I said last week that it is always beneficial for people to be in showmances. It makes you more interesting, and some people disagreed with me. And I just want to bring this up. And I don't mean this in a negative way, because I think Sierra is stunning. I want to see her do well. I want to see her find love. But we think back to last season. What happened with Sierra last season? Can you remember? Think about it. That's right. We can't, because there was nothing. There was nothing there. I think she I don't even remember. Karma Brown was her moment last season, right? Where she goes all out in these costumes and she's funny and we see this different side of her personality, but that's the only thing I remember. So it benefited her too. It really benefited Wes though as well, because it made him a household name. It took a long time for Jesse to get there. It wasn't as instant as it was with West. So I feel like I am interested to see how this continues to play out in season 9 if they both come back. I've heard nothing on who's coming back and who isn't, but I would be shocked if they didn't come back. Kyle and Amanda, the people are pissed over the lack of Kyle and Amanda content. I mean, obviously in the extended and uncensored version, we got a lot more Kyle and Amanda content. And I watched it hoping that we would get more, because in the aired version, I feel like throughout the entire season, we were talking about Kyle and Amanda just as much as we were talking about Lindsay and Carl, because Lindsay and Carl were having the same one argument over and over and over again with the job stuff. Whereas Amanda and Kyle were having different arguments that spanned a number of different episodes. You have the fight about where they're going to live. You have the fight about Amanda wanting to do something on her own. You have the fight between Kyle and Paige, and all of these things. And we didn't really dig into any of it. And it just bothers me that Lindsay and Carl, more so Lindsay, gets grilled for 32 minutes straight, and Kyle gets tossed softballs, where yes, he's still answering questions about what happened, but the questions are very delicately put and there's never any pushback. And Lindsay gets a lot of pushback from Andy. And to an extent, she deserves it. There are certain moments that you need to push back there. But there are a lot of moments that deserve some Kyle pushback as well. And we didn't get any of it. And I don't understand why. And people are in the comment section saying it's Kyle's show, blah, blah. It's not Kyle's show. Kyle isn't writing the checks to the cast and the crew. Was he the first person cast? Yes. Does that mean that you should get special treatment? I personally don't think so. So we get to the living in the suburbs argument, and she was annoyed the first weekend with Kyle that he was putting it out there on the first weekend. And they talk about when they want to move to the suburbs, and it's when the baby comes and the baby's walking and all of these things. If you want to look at the maturity levels and the difference between Kyle and Amanda, maturing is when you want a yard. We all had the big dreams of the city lights and the apartments. Once you hit 31, no. Or in Kyle's case, 45. I don't want that. Give me a backyard. Give me a fence. Give me a porch that I can drink coffee on. A shed. Stop. Hey now. That is what dreams are made of. And Amanda's there and Kyle is not. And I think that alone just proves that Amanda is more mature than Kyle. They talk about moving to Brooklyn in the extended version. And she's like, I just want to live close to my family, which I believe is in New Jersey. Amanda talks about her struggle with depression. And this came as Kyle said that he was lonely in the marriage. And she says, I felt lonely too. And we all felt for Amanda in that moment. And I feel like this is why I think we should be careful with the way that we do talk about reality shows and reality stars, because people are very quick with the hate and the vitriol and all of these things. And you might not agree with every little thing that every person does, but the person on the other side of that screen might be dealing with some serious mental health issues, and that might contribute to the way that they act. And I just think that sometimes it gets a little reckless from the fandom, where you can have an opinion, but you can go about it in a respectful manner. Because if you say something to someone who's really struggling with depression, that can have lasting effects on people. So that's just your PSA for the day. Be nice. I know my NPC girlies, you're baby angels on the earth. You would never be so mean to people. But Kyle, on the same hand too, says, I've kind of known about her anxiety and depression. And it's like, if you've kind of known about her anxiety and depression, why do you then say, I have to babysit my wife and cuss her out on national television? You know, like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And there's another conversation, obviously, that this stems from. What does she want to do outside of Loverboy? She still doesn't know. She still hasn't decided. She wants a brand of her own. And I'm coming back to my original thought about this, where, mental health struggles might contribute to the factor that she doesn't know what she wants to create on her own. But also, I feel like Kyle wasn't necessarily wrong in his feelings that if Amanda creates this other sub-brand, he is going to have to be involved. And I'm not saying that in like a derogatory way at all. But Amanda said, I'm not an entrepreneur. So if it's Kyle or if it's somebody else, she's going to need somebody there to help her if she wants to do something like this. And I feel like it would be Kyle, because Kyle is in the closest proximity to her and he's an entrepreneur. That being said, his outbursts are insane. And he said on Trading Secrets that he's in therapy for it personally. So I hope that that is the case. I want to see something from Amanda because I would buy it. I've said it a million times. I think she's so effortlessly cool and chic, whether it was swimsuits or clothes. Like, she is a fashion icon. But we've made no progress, and that makes me pessimistic on whether or not we would see anything from her in the future. I hope I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong because, like I said, I would be a customer. But I think that they wanted to handle Kyle and Amanda's portion of the reunion, or they did handle it with kid gloves. And I don't know if it might be because they were being sensitive to the conversation around mental health. Although Amanda wasn't the one that I think really deserved to be on the hot seat. It was Kyle, the manner at which Andy questioned Lindsay and, rebutted all of her talking points and really just drilled her compared to Kyle. Like, it's something to be studied, honestly, because the differences were wild. And people make the comparison. They say that Kyle and Lindsay are the same person. And the house has very different reactions to both of them. I don't think they're the same person, but I do think that they're similar in the fact that they have these outbursts when they're drinking. And people seem to be quicker to forgive Kyle than they do Lindsay. Anyways. Let's move on to Jesse Solomon. We've come a long way with Jesse Solomon, haven't we? What would Jesse Solomon do? Can we be honest? Can we be honest about what would Jesse Solomon do? Was it an iconic moment? Yes. Is it a bad song? Also, yes. It's not a good as gold banger, you guys. So we're not streaming it. It's not the song of the summer, is it? I don't know. It's like one of those campy things, that Bravo fans love. We're here for it. But my gosh, it's getting a little carried away, in my personal opinion. But Jesse was a slow burn, I will say. At the beginning of the season, I was a little unsure. We had him on the podcast and I started warming up. But by the end of it, we really, I personally just warmed up to Jesse a lot. I think what he said in the reunion about inspiring hope to anyone going through chemo or has a family member going through chemo, saying that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Everyone's problem, the relationship problems feel so small compared to what Jesse was going through. And although it is such a serious and heavy topic, it almost to me felt like a breath of fresh air. And I know I need to unpack that because that seems like a wild sentence, but sometimes the drama on these shows can feel so trivial and contrived and sometimes exaggerated. There was no exaggerating this. This is as real as it gets. And it's something that a lot of people in life have to navigate. And when he talks about how he was feeling insecure about showing his vulnerability on camera, crying on camera, I just feel like Jesse was 100% himself and was 100% honest in his first season. And we love a vulnerable king. I mean, if we take anything away from him, it's that vulnerability really, I know it sounds so cliche and corny, but like it really is a beautiful thing to be vulnerable and to share your feelings and express yourself and not be afraid to do so. And it connects us all. So I'm here for Jesse Solomon and I hope he comes back too. Let's now get to the 32 minutes that were dedicated to Carl and Lindsay. Ugh, I don't want to. Guys, my notes are so long. Okay, let's just go ahead and get into it. We go back to the first fight of the summer where Lindsay accuses Carl of not being sober. And this starts in the car because Lindsay thinks that it's going to cause an argument between the girls, that she didn't ride with them. She felt dismissed. Kyle interjects and he's like, you made this up out of thin air. This is delusional. We were there. It spiraled. Now I know why your fight spiraled because you live in La La Land is essentially what he says. And I think we don't know. We'll never know. So I'm not going to sit here and say Lindsay was cuckoo in the car. I'm not going to say, that Carl was a jerk. We don't know. What I will say is when you are in a state and you're already on edge and you are in a relationship and alcohol is involved, if your support system isn't giving you what you need, it sometimes causes other reactions. You know what I'm saying? Like even I can see a world where Carl was ignoring it because he didn't want it to blow up or he didn't really think that it was a big deal. But in doing that, it actually makes the problem worse. You know what I mean? Like there are some moments where from your partner, you just want to hear them say, it's okay. It's going to be all right. A little pat on the head, a little pat on the back. So maybe the fact that she felt like she wasn't getting that caused it to spiral, and it like might not even necessarily be Carl's fault that it spiraled because he was trying to do the opposite. But you know what I'm saying? Like we're not rational people sometimes. Anywho, Jesse tells the story about how Lindsay like cocked her fist back to punch him in the face. I was shocked that they put that in the reunion. I mean, mostly because he said it on the pod and they made us take it out. So like I thought that they were going to take that to the grave. But anyhow, Cocaine Carl. I hate even saying it. I really, really do. It's too low of a blow for a lot of people to get past. And Carl says, I've never been called Cocaine Carl before in my life. He might not have been called that, but like Kyle was definitely the first person to bring it up on camera. And it's like how quickly we forget. Like Kyle sitting there, like the guy from 300. Is that the movie where they're like, Sparta? And they like rush. Like that was Kyle. And it's like, Kyle, do you not remember? Like literally, was it last season that you talked about this in front of the entire world? Another example of how Kyle and Lindsay are actually pretty similar. But anyways, she says it was wrong for her to question his sobriety, which I'm glad she said. She needed to say it because it was wrong. In the extended version, she talks about how his sobriety line is blurred. And what is considered sober and what is not. Is weed considered sober? Is other substances considered sober? Because apparently Carl's two big issues were alcohol and cocaine. And she talks about how other substances have been used recreationally. And there's two thoughts to this. Some people are like, oh, I can't believe that she would say that. Like, why is she outing this? And then there are other people who are like, well, that kind of makes her thought process. It just gives some context to her thought process, right? And it's like if Lindsay Hubbard is going to do one thing, she is going to put it all out there. So I can't necessarily say that I'm surprised. But everybody then comes in and is like, why aren't you supportive of his sobriety? Do you not know his definition of being sober? And I think it's clear that she didn't know the definition of being sober. So when she reads that text and she says, you say, I'm sober right now. It is a little more complicated than what we initially thought. I still don't think it's right. Like, don't get it twisted. Don't be in my DMs. Don't be in my reviews. I still don't think it's right. It just makes a little more sense because is she asking, are you sober from alcohol or have you smoked? Like there's just at this point, it feels like nobody really knows what the definition is. And Amanda says, why are you so fixated on his definition of sobriety? It's like, because they were about to get married. What a weird question to ask. What a weird question to ask, in my opinion. Carl says he is opening a sports bar, a cafe, non-alcoholic. He needs to be in that space. I know nothing about opening a cafe or sports bar, so I'm not going to sit here and say that it's going to be a money pit. It's going to be a bust. I'm not going to poo-poo on his parade. A lot of people are saying, people made fun of Craig when he started sewing, and look at him now. He's the male Martha Stewart, or trying to be at least. I think it's easier to sell a product in Craig's defense than open a place, but we will see. We will see how the chips fall. I think Carl needs to go into like the motivational speaking space. People would turn out for that. People would want to see like meet and greets and motivational speaking, whether it's at like high schools or I don't know. You get what I'm saying. The conversation around their jobs. They both make money on the show, the same amount. They started together. Everyone gets the same amount based on how many years you've been on the show. And Lindsay says, my main concern is what happens when that goes away. They're like, Lindsay, you have the same job as Carl. You both are on Summer House and you both do brand deals on the side. And Carl says, I made $70,000, whatever, as an influencer. Lindsay makes enough money to pay $13,000 a month rent by herself. Does Carl? I don't know. But I mean, it sounds bad to say this, but I am going to say it. Like, for some reason, if a guy said to me, like, I want to be an influencer, like kind of does give me a little bit of an ick. I don't know why. Am I being a little sexist in that? I don't know. Maybe. We get to Lou and Sharon, that conversation at the shore, and Carl says he didn't know how to handle the conversation with Lou, says he didn't know, whether to bring it up. It made him feel a certain type of way, but he was committed to making things work. At one point, Amanda says, there's no right way to break up. And Gabby says, you don't do it on camera. And then Amanda says, yes, I've had some things happen to me on camera by yours truly. And there it is, you guys. There it is. If you were wondering why Amanda and Kyle were so vocal during this reunion on behalf of Carl, which I don't even think that Carl needed. I think that Carl articulated himself very well. I think that he took accountability for some things. There are some things I think he could have took a little bit more accountability for, but I think for the most part, he did take accountability for some things. He didn't need Kyle and Amanda to fight this battle for them. But they will never get over the fact that Lindsay brought up a cheating allegation on camera in season 3, 5 years ago, however many years ago it was. They'll never get over it. And they will always hold on to resentment for that. Even last reunion. It was brought up last reunion. Amanda was like, I wish you would have told me off camera first. And so I guess in Amanda's mind, it's karma, right? What goes around comes around. Lindsay, now you're getting a taste of your own medicine. Other people are like, Amanda and Kyle, you guys need to let it go. You got married. You forgave him. You did whatever. So let's let it go. Andy has this soapbox moment. Y'all don't decide what is shot on the show. Production decides what is shot on the show. Blah, 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 blah. That's what I think of that. He's like, they wanted the aftermath of this terrible weekend. Why? Oh, they fought in the car. Womp womp. The fight in the car was after the season had wrapped. Why would they care about the fight in the car? There will never be a time where Andy admits to something being a little bit manipulated. It ruins the premise of these reality shows. Like, he would never come out and say, yes, we knew that Carl was going to break up with you on camera, Lindsay. Come on down. The price is right. Because there goes the show's authenticity. There goes the premise of the show. I've said it before. I don't think that Carl called production and said, hey, by the way, I'm breaking up with Lindsay on camera. I think he called production and said, we're still arguing. We have had an argument and the word has been said, I'm close to calling off the wedding. Something has got to give. We're either going to make up or we're going to break up. Up to you. They talk to their producers. They give them the 411 on what's going on in their life. They give them the 411 on how they're feeling. That's how they stitch the story together. It is. They talk to their producers a lot. And I know that. We're getting into this weird place, though, with these Bravo shows, and we've been in it for a while. We felt it in Vanderpump Rules, and now we're starting to feel it in Summer House, where the show has gotten to such a place of success that it doesn't require them to have these full-time other jobs. But what constitutes them continuing on other seasons? They have to bring it. I'm using air quotes. How do you ensure that your job doesn't end after season 8? You have to start thinking a little bit down the road. And I just don't understand how anybody can watch that conversation and think Carl was just postponing. He was just postponing the wedding. He wasn't. He was breaking up with her. And like I've said it a million times, even if he didn't say it to production, he knew in his head that he was going to break up with her. There was nothing about that conversation that said, let's work on things. That, and Carl says earlier in the reunion, I'm the worst guy ever. Do you read the internet? Which I don't think is true. I don't think Carl's the worst guy ever. But Carl does read the internet and he reads the comment section. And what was the label that was attached to Carl Radke before season 8? Can you think of it? There was one word that was used a lot to describe Carl in season 7. Can you remember what it was? Boring. Boring was the word that y'all said about Carl a lot last season. Can't say that anymore. You cannot say that Carl Radke was boring this season, and I wonder why. Where does Summer House go from here? Can Lindsay Hubbard and Carl Radke live in the same summer shared house after this catastrophic season? Absolutely. Yes, they can. And yes, they will. If we learned anything from this reunion, it's that they both care about the paycheck that Summer House brings them. I feel like they both will do this show until they are not asked to do the show anymore. And I feel like in the last 8 minutes or so of the reunion, they left that door wide open. Carl says that he's trying not to have deep-rooted resentment and that the reunion went better than he thought. Lindsay says, I don't know if I can be friends with Carl. I need to be a little bit removed to see how I feel because I've been reliving this for almost a year. But let's just be really honest. They both benefit financially from being on this show. And we've seen Lindsay move on from things quickly. Now that she has a new boyfriend, I feel like she will be able to do it easy peasy. I'd love to see the new boyfriend come in one weekend and see how Carl reacts to it. I don't know if we will see that. She's kept this relationship private for 6 months. She might be over sharing that part of her life. She's done it for however many years, and we've seen how that has panned out. But then again, she's Lindsay Hubbard. And you can say what you want about Lindsay, but she is an open book. I think she always has, and I think she always will be. So we'll see where the road leads. Let's move on to final thoughts. And it's about Love Island USA. You guys, I'm dying. I'm dead. I'm gagged. I'm flabbergasted. Who knew? Who knew that Love Island USA was going to cook this season? I always thought Love Island USA was the worst. I thought the people were cringy. I was never into it. It just never was my thing. Love Island UK, on the other hand, I love the banter. Can I pull you for a chat? You just don't get that type of stuff in Love Island USA. Now the roles have completely reversed. I am so invested in Love Island USA, and I could care less about Love Island UK. hiring Ariana to be the host was such a great idea. I mean, she is the it girl of the moment and she is crushing it. I feel like she's not too hosty. You know what I mean? And I feel like she is very effortless and very natural. If I'm going to sit here and nitpick her, because like that's what we do, I'm not going to nitpick her because I love Ariana and I always have. Roll the tapes. But like there is a certain cadence that she always says things in and it's really easy to do. Trust me. It's called a crutch in the broadcast journalism world. And I've had them working on a morning show for 6 years. But she's always like, Rob and Leah, your first couple. Who else? I don't know any other couple. Kaitlyn and whoever. I don't know anybody else besides Rob and Leah at this particular moment. But she started to break away from that. She looks phenomenal. Oh my gosh, she looks so good. And she's crushing it. And I'm just so happy for her. Other than that, like I just feel like the couples are wild and out. These people are losing their ever-loving minds. The episode that came out on Tuesday was wild. You have Rob and Leah, right? They're in this somewhat serious couple. And I gotta say, I've always been weary of Rob. Ever since he wore those overalls with nothing underneath them, I was always like, I don't know about this guy. I don't think I like this guy. Any guy that wears those blue jean overalls with no shirt underneath it or anything, I'm just like, I'm looking at you kind of sideways. And now my intuition was right because Rob threw the curveball of all curveballs when he decided to start talking to this lady named Andrea. And honestly, the episode that aired on Tuesday night will go down, I think, in Love Island history. The way that this man was having a conversation with Leah about how he was interested in Andrea was like textbook gaslighting. And I don't throw that word around very often because I think it's a buzzword. I think people like to use it incorrectly. But literally, he's sitting there telling Leah, I'm interested in this other girl. And then all of a sudden he starts sobbing. I don't think you listen to me. Just give me 2 seconds. I was like, ugh. What is happening here? And I know at the end of the episode, when the preview came up for next week, Leah's like, when he started crying on the ground, I got the ick. No, when he said, just give me 2 seconds, that's when I got the ick. I was like, you're joking. You're joking in your cargos, in your baggy cargos. I cannot. He literally is hyperventilating. He does a pencil dive into the pool. He hides under the pool deck because he's just spiraling. And it's like he likes 2 girls at the same time. That's the problem. He doesn't know how to communicate that. And I feel like in moments he actually does communicate it where it's Love Island. Like you can't just be closed off to this one person from the get-go, off the rip, he says. I feel like it would just be so much better if he was like, I am interested in the both of you. I don't know where it's going to go. Leah, if you feel like you need to take a step back and explore other options, that's great. I still would like to do that. I still would like to explore my option with you, but I also am going to explore this with Andrea. Like, okay. But instead, he's like, I don't want to lose what we have, but we have no sexual chemistry. I think you're great, but you also don't listen to me. And it was just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And he's going through all these emotions. And then he pops off on Leah saying that it's like all her fault. And I'm like, no. Next, please. I could not. And then we get to the end. And this was a plot twist for the ages, you guys. We get to the end with the fire pit and we know, okay, the new bombshells are going to have to couple up with a new boy. What's going to happen? Because we know if we left it to Andrea to pick, she's picking Rob. But nope, they added a little spice this time. They sprinkled a little spice on it. And they were like, if you're interested, you have to stand up and you have to go to the front of the class. And Rob, like I know he does stuff with like snakes and bugs and stuff, but he was like wiggling around that fire pit like he had snakes in his pants because he wanted to get up, but he didn't want Leah to get upset. Long story short, he gets up, they get coupled up, and Leah is fuming. You can just see it. You can see the steam blowing out of her ears. She's like, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. He doesn't even deserve it. But then she says, you know what? An explicitive. Is that the word? I don't know. I don't know if that's the word, but you guys are going to be calling me dumb in my reviews like some girl did. Anyways, she says, screw you. She says a different word. She mouths it. She's like, screw you. And he's like, what? He perks his ear forward. And then she's like, screw you. And I'm like, yeah, Leah, say with your whole chest. Because, quite frankly, screw Rob. And that's how I feel about that. I'm loving Love Island USA. Who would have thought 2024 first that I'm into Love Island USA? You guys, thank you for the people out there who left a review last week. I was begging, pretty much on my knees, begging, pleading, please leave me a review. And you guys came out. If you didn't do it last week, do it this week. A little 5-star boop, boop, a little love you like it says. Next week, Wedding 2.0. Am I going to be hyperventilating like Rob in his baggy cargo shorts? Probably. And if I am, you'll be the first to know because you're my girls. Okay? So we'll see you next week. As always, love you like a sis. Bye.